All right, all right. It is Wednesday night, Will and I's favorite night of the week. We are hanging out, talking Mississippi State, and Will, it's been an interesting week so far in Gator Nation, don't you think?
It definitely has been. The news reports today definitely. This is my mood, by the way, for the news reports. Feels like we're finally there, end of the line.
It does feel like we can see the end in sight. There might be, I don't know, some light at the end of the tunnel, some interest to this. I can see, like, you can tell just how amped up the plans are based on the comments on this. We have been live for 45 seconds, and there is just so many comments. Like, people are raring to
Yeah,
go for change. But this is just, I don't know. It's an interesting week. I guess we never really even officially opened the show. Allie Peak, joined by Will Thomas, Tailgate Talk SEC, but really we've kind of stolen him over here for a peek inside Gator football and a peek inside the SEC. We were kind of already addressing the elephant in the room, and I think we should talk it out a little bit more before we go into this Mississippi State game. But did you see a report out from Matt Hayes talking about that, like, UF is going to fire him on Sunday regardless of the outcome? And I can totally see if he loses, absolutely, you fire him. That's kind of an easy thing. What kind of situation is the administration in? Let's say he beats Mississippi State by 40 points, though. Is that, I don't know. How does that go over?
it's going to be hard because this, at least to me as an outsider, you're right. Like it feels like this is the first time that this kind of been real. The buzz
Mhm.
about him losing his job, right? Because it's always been, fans like we want him gone. People just talking about that. Like now you have reporters like at 24/7. They're like effectively writing eulogies almost. Like that's kind of the first sign. And then you
Yeah.
get the reports about the booster meetings. Like this is when it first feels real. So no matter what happens, if he is not fired after this game, I think that the outroar and the outrage from the fans on social media is going to be even worse than we've seen.
Yeah.
Because now it feels like everybody's convinced like this is the last game. Like it
Yeah.
feels like we're on the home stretch. I mean, I got one of these things. I'm gonna be so disappointed if I bought this for no reason. Um, it really feels like this has got to be like the time, or else he's gonna lose a lot of fans. If it though does that Strickland hasn't already.
So it's I can see things from both sides. As a fan, yeah, I'm ready, like, for this roller coaster to be over. I feel like I've said that for weeks. Over the summer, I said, "Hey, this is a 9-3 team. If they're not, it's on coaching." Like, I think this is a long time coming. But I do always think about the players in the locker room, and my husband was on a team that had a coach fired. My brother was on a team that had a coach fired. I think about what that's like in the locker room. I will throw out the caveat that it's a little bit different if you're making a bunch of money to be there, and
Mhm.
maybe I feel less bad for you, but not every person in that locker room is making thousands upon thousands of dollars to be there. Some of them are, the walk-ons. Some of them are third string guys, and it is tough to lose your coach. It's really tough to lose your coach mid-season. I think back to when Ron Zook was fired. Eric and I were sophomores, and my father-in-law was, or not father-in-law, excuse me, godfather was on the board of trustees. And he called me from the air on the team plane on the way home from Mississippi State and said, "Allie, they're going to do it. They're going to fire him. Like, he's gone." But then also swore me to secrecy for 24 hours. So the team got called in for a meeting on Monday morning, and it was like, be in the meeting rooms at 10 a.m. or something like that. But on like 9:30, they're seeing across the ticker at ESPN, Ron Zook out at
Mhm.
Florida. And that was right about the time they were getting the text messages to come to the meeting room. So that is how those players found out, was by reading it on the ESPN ticker. And when Muschamp was fired, I knew before my brother knew, who was on the team, but like a booster had said something to me. And, and I do think that the way that the athletic departments handle it with their players is rarely right. It's rare, and but it's hard because you want these guys to stay.
Mhm.
I think this team is so similar to the Ron Zook, Urban Meyer situation that if you get the right coach, this team can win immediately, you
They
know?
definitely can. Yeah. And I think in terms of, in keeping the roster together, the new rule
Mhm.
where, it's
So
when it
great
used
for
to be
us.
when coaches were fired, you have those 15 days immediately to just go. Now they have to wait for Florida to hire somebody else, and then they have that time period where they can go if they want to. So it makes it a lot easier. Like, just take Lagway, for example. Dream scenario, we go out and hire Kiffin. Then all of a sudden Lane has a week or so to convince DJ, like, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to utilize your skill set. Stay.
Yeah,
Same thing with Dallas Wilson. Same thing with VB3. Like, the new ruling is going to help teams fire coaches a lot more, which obviously is not something you necessarily want to celebrate from a human
right.
element. But like, football wise, the roster construction is probably going to be easier to keep together given that new ruling.
Right, right. Yeah, and I'm thankful that the changes came when they did. But I think, like, so why now as opposed to right after Texas A&M if you knew this was going to happen anyway? And I understand the concept of a bye week and giving an interim staff 2 weeks to prepare for your opponent. But the flip side of that is your players had to hear this all week long.
Yeah, I wish I knew. I wish I knew why it felt like waiting until after homecoming to do it made more sense.
Yeah,
Um, it just feels like the whole thing has been dragged on.
yeah.
It feels like for like a year and a half too long now. And I mean, it's clear that Strickland has not wanted to get rid of Napier at all because of how it would reflect on him. Dragging this out is reflecting on him way worse than just cutting your losses and saying this was a mistake. We're going to find something different. So, man, I wish I could tell you why it's going to happen after this weekend. Maybe,
Yeah.
but the whole thing is kind of lost on me. Some of the decision making.
Yeah, which I feel like we've kind of questioned some of the decision making all along. So this is somewhat par for the course. Okay, so let's pivot. Let's talk about this homecoming game that's happening on Saturday. Give me your overall thoughts on Mississippi State so far. They upset Arizona State, but they've kind of struggled a little bit since then.
They have, yeah, 0-2 in conference play. Was the overtime home loss to Tennessee, which obviously overtime they were close to winning that game, and then they got beat up in College Station. Both teams, their last games are after A&M, so that's a fun little nugget. But I mean, they're pretty middle of the pack in the SEC when it comes to passing and rushing per game on offense. Defensively, they're giving up the exact same amount of points per game as Florida. And they have the fourth best pass defense in the SEC, but the second worst rush defense. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do think that Jeff Lebby overall, as a coach there, he's doing a great job of bringing some excitement and some juice back to that program down in Starkville. They're already over their win total for the year before conference play even started, and they do have the opportunity to win some big games in conference at home. I think Texas goes there. I believe Oklahoma goes there too. So they have some big chances to win some big-time games. I do think overall the program is heading up.
Let's talk a little bit about their quarterback, Blake Shapen. What are your thoughts on him so far this season?
Yeah, so he's really experienced. I think he's turning 36 this year. It's his fifth year playing in college. He started his career off at Baylor. This is his second year at Mississippi State. A little over 67% completion rate this year. He's not really much of a ground threat. He's throwing for 1,200 yards at this point already. But, I mean, he'll take off if it's there, but he only has 19 rush yards on the year, which doesn't include sacks, so he has a little bit more than that. But he's really not going to hurt you with his legs. He's looked pretty good. He was hurt last year, only played 4 games, so people kind of forgot about him. Even I kind of forgot about him, but he's surpassed my expectations to this point so far this year. And he has a really pleasantly surprising group of skill guys around him that have helped that offense really click.
That's kind of what I was going to ask you about next. Talk to me about some of the weapons that Mississippi State has and, maybe some names that Florida fans should be looking out for on Saturday.
Yeah, so their biggest weapon actually is doubtful to play. It's Fluff Bothwell, their lead running back. He came in from South Alabama for him at this offseason. He's got 5.5 average yards per carry, but he was hurt against A&M. He's doubtful as of now, so the running back duties are going to go off to Devon Booth, who was that change of pace guy for Bothwell. He's run for 266 and 4 scores so far in the year. Then out wide, their receivers have really played beyond what I thought they were going to do. Brennan Thompson is their top guy. He's got 22 catches for 378 and 4 touchdowns. I mean, 17.2 yards per catch. He can take the top off. He's the guy who had that big catch to beat Arizona State at the end, so he's an absolute firecracker. And then Anthony Evans the second. He's more of their intermediate guy running those routes. He has 31 catches and 2 scores. Much more of the middle of the field guy that you'll kind of see to try and separate, take some guys down so Brandon Thompson can go deep. But Mississippi State, they're not necessarily like these 4 or 5-star guys, but they're pretty good athletes, and they're good players who've been producing so far this season.
It's that coaching development. Uh, let's talk a little bit about Mississippi State's defense. Can UF's offense find some success against them?
I would hope so. So they're 11th overall in the SEC in total defense, 4th in passing defense, allowing just a 59.1% completion rate, and they forced 8 picks. They're 15th in the SEC in rush defense. They're giving up 162 yards per game on the ground, 4.3 yards per carry. If Florida will just give the ball to Jaden Ball, I think that's really going to help this offense move a lot, even more this week. than the other ones because he's always been the catalyst to get the offense going, get the offense in rhythm. Because Florida as a team, I believe, is averaging 3.9 yards per carry. Ball's up at 4.9. Like he is the ground game. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of rotating backs. Like I get it to keep ball healthy and not make sure he doesn't get hurt, but you've got to be willing to give him a little more of the workload when he's this much better than everybody else. So I do think if Florida's going to find success, it's going to be in the ground game, and they can push around a Mississippi State D-line that's been pretty soft against the run this year.
Okay, so that kind of leans into my next question, which is about the trenches. Like, I do think Florida should have a pretty big advantage on both sides of the ball in the trenches, no?
They do, yeah. So Mississippi State is the third most sacked team in the conference. They've given up 16. Florida's down at 12, which is also not a great grade, but obviously in this situation, better than State's. And Mississippi State has forced 8 sacks. Florida's forced 9, which are both really bad relative to the rest of the SEC. But UF's offensive line, I do think will have a bounce back performance from what happened last week in College Station because this is a much easier assignment for them, not having to block a guy like Cassius Howell and that relentless pass rush that the Aggies have. And Mississippi State, they've already been vulnerable to sacks. So even though Florida's defensive line is beat up, you still have Jaden Woods, you still have Tyreek Sapp, you still have guys who are pretty quick, and Shapen is not quick, right? So if you just get into that pocket, he won't be able to go anywhere. And Florida should have a much better day on both lines, really, than they did last week against the Aggies.
Would you say that Texas's offensive and defensive line are better than Mississippi State's? Like, I'm trying to look for a comparison here. We know they're not Texas A&M, and we know what happened to Florida last week. But I mean, the week before that, Florida didn't have any problem taking care of Texas A&M's line, really on either side of the ball. Are they better than Mississippi State is?
Defensively, Texas definitely is. I mean, just in terms of talent production, D-line for D-line, this is a much easier assignment for sure. Offensively, I mean, right, talent-wise, Texas has it in terms of like blue chip guys. It hasn't looked like it. So I'm honestly not even sure I could tell you who's a line I like that much better because of how much Texas has underperformed. So I don't really know what that room is like at their ceiling. But defensive line, this is definitely a much easier blocking assignment for Florida than Texas was.
But we say all this stuff about Mississippi State being not good and this being an easier assignment. But it is important to point out, not only did they beat that Arizona State team, but they took Tennessee into overtime, right? The other day. And so like that, I mean, that's pretty impressive. This is a good Tennessee team. We just got a note from our producer that Fluff was ruled out for sure as of a minute ago. So that, you alluded to that already, but that has now been confirmed that he is out. But anyway, they're not, this isn't your granddaddy's Mississippi State, right? This is at least a pretty serviceable team. What should UF fans be the most concerned about?
If Blake Shapen is able to find his rhythm and those receivers are able to get separation, this is a legitimate passing offense with potential. And with Bothwell being officially out now, we're going to see State throwing the ball, 5 or 10 more times than they usually do. And for Shapen, his passing attempts have been in the 20s ever since Arizona State because of whether it's competition, because they're running the ball. The last time he threw the ball 30-plus times was against Arizona State, where he threw for 279 and 3 scores. And I think that there could be a similar game script for Mississippi State in this one because Bothwell is not playing. And Florida's secondary, they've suddenly looked a little more porous against these Texas schools in the past 2 games than they had earlier in the year. We talked about on the before, like, against Texas, there were a lot of open guys. Against A&M, there were some explosives down there. So Florida's secondary, it doesn't look quite as strong as it had early on in the season. And I'll talk about State's receivers not being, top tier recruit guys. They're fast and they're quick and they get great. So if that passing game for State finds rhythm, they could hit some more explosives and hit some deep passing games and really get chunk plays down the field. Which if we've heard, Florida fans have already been upset vocally a lot. If Mississippi State opens up a 14-0 lead because of some explosives, that place is going to light on fire. But not saying that's going to happen, but I do think that Mississippi State does kind of have that gear where they can click into. So that's what Florida should be concerned about is their passing offense.
What do you think is UF's biggest advantage in this one?
Their ability to run the ball. The only question is, will they commit to it? Like I talked about, Jaden Ball is averaging just about 5 yards per carry. It's enough with the excessive rotating. I agree with rotating backs. It feels like, we'll see Ball not on the field for like an entire drive in the second quarter. Like that seems excessive to me. So I think you just need to keep running the ball with him. Give it to him 30 times as long as he's okay, obviously, and just let him chip away at this defense because Mississippi State's front is not strong enough. They're just not to stop a Florida running game if they commit to it consistently with their best players.
All right. Well, tell me. First of all, are you coming back into town, or was you Texas was enough for you? You're going to stay in Nashville for this weekend.
I think I'm gonna stick in Nashville for this one. I'll be back down there for a Florida State game, but I think I'm gonna wait until the dust settles with the potential coaching change down there before I get back down.
So I won't be in the stadium this weekend, which will be the first time all year that I haven't made it to a home game. But there's a barbecue contest in Tampa called Pig Jig that Eric cooks in every year. So, but I kind of feel very weird that I'm missing it. I feel like I'm going to be missing the last game of the Napier era. Like I don't know what's going to happen. Is there going to be flames on the field? Is there I'm it's kind of like watching a train wreck, and I'm really sad that I'm not going to be there. But one of you watching at home is actually going to benefit from the fact that I won't be going there, because I have 2 tickets to give away. In just a little bit, we'll tell you how you can win them. But we're going to play our sleeper game too. But first, give me your prediction.
Yeah, so I do think that Florida will commit to the running game a good bit. Now, there is a chance that Napier knows this is his last time and just says screw it and throws the ball 50 times. I hope that's not what happens. I hope he actually tries to coach the game correctly. So I do think Florida will run the game consistently enough, have some fewer possessions. The defense will take a punch or two, I think, because of Mississippi State's passing game, but still be overall solid. Give me like Florida 28-17. So Napier goes out a winner, but not really actually at all.
All right. Well, that will be interesting. It'll be the most Napier thing ever to win the game by like 50 points.
We're scoring 63 this week, just so everybody knows.
But listen, you're going to be like, where has this offense been for the last 4 years? All right. Well, we are going to play our favorite game on this show. First, thanks to Sleeper for their support. Use code PEAK for a 100% match up to $100. And for the whole month of October, all of you who have been waiting to make a deposit, get a free $20 entry by using our code, which is PEAK, P-E-E-K, on the Sleeper app. Terms and conditions apply, so see Sleeper's terms of use for more information. Okay. There are no more or less options again listed for our game. So because I didn't like that we didn't get to do it, we're just going to pick some of the other games out there. We're going to start with your favorite person in college football, John Napier. Okay. Does he have more or less than 235.5 passing yards at South Carolina?
I'm going to say more because, like you said, my favorite guy. But I do think that last week against Texas, it was a combination of that defense is incredible. They were desperate, but also he had missed a few weeks of live reps. I thought he was healthy enough, but he just wasn't quite in the flow of playing. So he has the week of live reps back. He's back to being comfortable. And we know that Oklahoma's not going to run the ball, mainly because they can't. And
Right.
South Carolina defense, in the nicest way possible, it's not good. It's super average. So I think that Oklahoma will be able to throw the ball around more, a bit of a bounce back spot, kind of get some of that frustration from last week out. So I'll go more from Napier.
Okay. Joey Aguilar, more or less than 235 yards passing. They're playing Bama.
They are. And Bama's pass defense is good. It's second in the SEC in yards per game, but Tennessee is so explosive. And I also don't know how healthy Deshaun Bishop is, Tennessee's leading running back. I believe he's questionable right now, but even if he does play, is he 100%? And can he be as effective as he needs to be? So I sort of think Tennessee might also have, 5 or 6 more pass plays in their arsenal this week. And they're just so explosive. I think they'll connect on a few deep balls. No matter how good Bama's defense is, I think they get enough chunks. So I'll go more for Aguilar also.
All right, what about Ty Simpson? 288.5 passing yards, more or less?
I'm going 3 for 3 here. I'm saying more for Ty also because Tennessee has the worst pass defense in the SEC. Now, that's really due to injuries, and they haven't been able to have their best guys playing corner. But for right now, that's the fact. And Jam Miller is questionable. He was concussed last week. So, exact same story again. Beat up running back 1 against a bad pass defense in Tennessee. I think Ty slings the ball around. Bama scores a lot of points through the air. So give me more for Ty also.
Okay, what about, let's see if you're going to go 4 for 4. Diego Pavia, more or less than 204.5 passing yards. They're playing LSU.
They are. I'm going less for Pavia.
Your hometown right there, or in your current town anyway.
I wish I could go. I'm actually out of town. I did want to go to this game, but sadly I can't make it. But I am going to go less on Pavia because I think Vandy, their identity has been running the ball, right? And they've been able to throw it effectively. But I think in this game, they're going to run the ball, try and control the tempo, and limit mistakes because LSU's offense, they can't hurt anybody. It's like what you saw with LSU and Miami when they played Florida. Like there was no fear of the offense doing anything, so they just kind of kept it conservative. I think Vandy is the same thing. Focus on taking care of the ball. Don't give away any gifts. Ground game, run the clock, fewer possessions. So give me less for Pavia, but I would go more on his rushing yards, whatever it is.
Another quarterback that you were high on this summer had some injuries.
Yeah.
Lenore Sellers. Is he going to have more or less than 29.5 rushing yards against Oklahoma?
My pick on this one really depends on if sack yardage counts against him because Carolina is the second most sacked team in the SEC and Oklahoma has the second most sacks in the SEC. So the pressure will be there. If sacks don't hurt him, he's a good enough athlete who will break tackles to scramble out and get those yards. But if sacks do hurt him, I mean, I think he might get sacked 6 or 7 times in this game. I think Oklahoma's front is going to have a field day against that O-line. So I think right now I'll say more for Sellers because I do think he'll break a tackle or two, and he's so explosive in the open field. So I'll go more for Sellers overall.
All right, last one. More or less than 197.5 passing yards for Bo Prabula versus Auburn.
I'm going to say more because I think really this one is just for me as simple as Missouri is averaging 240 passing yards per game and Auburn is allowing 225 per game. Those are both metrics that top of the SEC for Missouri, little middle of the pack for Auburn. And Auburn's rush defense is good. So I think that Ahmad Hardy for Missouri is once again going to be relatively limited like we saw against Alabama last week. So I think they're going to count on Bo to be consistent. And I don't know what kind of game we're getting from Auburn. I don't know if they're dead yet or if this is their last stand. But regardless, I am going to say more for Pabula.
All right. Well, this has been our more or less game brought to you by Sleeper. Will, thanks for hanging out. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media and listen to your work when you're not hanging out with us.
Yeah, I'm at W. Thomas Sports on Twitter, Tailgate Talk SEC on YouTube, podcast everywhere else, and also, obviously, here.
All right. Sounds good. Well, we will, I'm sure, be texting back and forth this weekend. It's going to be a wild one. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Allie.
All right, guys, if you are watching at home, if you want to win 2 tickets to Florida Mississippi State homecoming this weekend, sit in 2 of my seats in the north end zone, the 5th row. Do me a favor, first person to comment gets them, but you got to be able to go to the game on Saturday in Gainesville. And then I'll tell you my email and you can go ahead and contact me and we can get this ticket sent over to you. So first person that would like to sit in 2 of my seats this weekend in Gainesville for the Florida Mississippi State game, comment below and we'll get you hooked up. Liquid Flames. It's Liquid Flames. Okay, so listen, we'll comment my email address in the chat. TJ will do it for me and I will get them sent over to you. Okay, let's see here. This matchup is pretty interesting. Florida, obviously, sitting at 2-4. Mississippi State, though, sitting at 4-2. This game in Gainesville on Saturday. It's a 4:15 kick, broadcast on the SEC network. Currently, Florida is favored by 9.5. And it's homecoming. So this team is looking for a spark. And it sounds like from everything we're hearing from boosters and things like that, a lifeline. They lost 34-17 last week at Texas A&M. And, their offense started strong for 2 series and then they just kind of faded away. The pressure is mounting. Fans are restless. There are too many fourth quarter collapses, too much conservative play calling, too many missed opportunities. And this is going to be an interesting one in the swamp. Mississippi State, I really think, is moving in the right direction, even though, they're not happy about those 2 losses. But Jeff Lebby has doubled the Bulldogs win total from last year. They were 2-10. They're already 4-2, but they have yet to break through in conference play. They opened 4-0 prior to starting those SEC games. And then, of course, we talked about the fact that they did beat Arizona State, but they lost to Tennessee in overtime, and then they lost to Texas A&M as well. Protection has been a glaring issue. The Bulldogs have surrendered 16 sacks in 6 games, ranked 112th nationally. So if there is a place where UF can maybe capitalize, that would potentially be it. There's going to be some injuries for Mississippi State. We talked about Fluff Bothwell being out. Isaac Smith, who is a safety for Mississippi State, is also limited. So, they're also not healthy, kind of right along with Florida. They're on a 14-game SEC losing streak, too, dating back to 2013. They're obviously hoping to end that streak against Florida. We're hoping to keep that streak alive Florida leads the overall series 36-18. Last meeting, Florida won in Starkville. And, this is going to be an interesting test. There is just so much noise around this team, around Coach Napier, around if he's going to be fired on Sunday, whether or not he wins, that I can understand why it would be really hard to get this team to be focused this week. I'm going to give you 5 keys to victory for Florida, 5 keys to victory for Mississippi State, the things I'm looking for, and some predictions, and we're going to get out of here. Florida needs to be able to sustain drives and finish. The Gators have been plagued by offensive stalls after halftime. Our middle 8, which is the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the third half, said that wrong. Last 4 minutes of the second quarter, first 4 minutes of the third quarter have been horrific. That is a good snapshot of an overall performance in a game, and Florida's are always pretty terrible during that time period. We need to see that not happen. They need to convert third downs, and they need to sustain tempo all the way through the game. They've started strong and just fizzled out, and they've got to be able to keep the momentum going all the way through. They also have to protect DJ Lagway. Mississippi State will text Florida's protection schemes, giving him time to work through his progressions, maybe unlock some more of his potential is important. They also need to commit to the run. First of all, not only is Jaden Baugh probably our very best offensive weapon, which is saying something with the stable of wide receivers that we have, but it helps set up the passing game when you can establish the ground game, particularly if you can do it inside the tackles. You can stabilize this offense. You can open up play action opportunities. It all hinges on being able to run the ball. You also need to create turnovers. The Gators have to flip field position. A big interception or a forced fumble or a punt block, something like that could ignite the swamp. The crowd will be there, even with all of our woes, even though the fans are not happy with administration or this coaching staff, that stadium will still be packed. You can use the momentum to your advantage. And then lastly, they got to play to win, not play to survive. Aggression in play calling is overdue for this Napier coach team. 4th down gambles, trick plays, early tempo shifts. He told us scared money don't make money. We need to see it. Now I'm going to tell you some keys to victory for Mississippi State. Keep the quarterback upright. 16 sacks in 6 games given up by this Mississippi State offensive line. That is not sustainable. If the pocket collapses again, the Bulldogs offense is going to sputter. They're going to want to win early downs. Staying ahead of the chains allows Coach Levy to use tempo and spacing instead of predictable passing downs. And they want to force Florida to make mistakes. Mississippi State must capitalize on Florida's penalties and protection breakdowns with turnovers and short field opportunities if they think they're going to have a shot in this game. They also need to exploit the middle of Florida's defense. Short passes and quick slants could neutralize UF's speed on the edges. And then they also need to finish drives. This seems like a common theme here. Field goals are not going to be enough when they come to Gainesville. Touchdowns are going to be mandatory for them to quiet the crowd and apply pressure. I think that this game is a long shot for Mississippi State, but I do think that they have played well enough this season at times to give the Gators a game. I'm going to tell you the 5 things that I need to see from Florida that are going to make sure they win this game. But before I do that, let me read some of your comments over here. Liquid Flame says he hasn't been able to go to a game since 2012, so I'm stoked. I'm excited for you too. I think that's awesome. Brian asked if I'm going to go on High Top after this. I'm not. I have an interview of my own scheduled that'll air later on tomorrow, and then I am actually going on Buddy Martin's show to interview Kelly Rae Finley, Florida's women's basketball coach. This is not going to be an easy game with Levy. He does a good job, and his team play with identity. I really do think this Mississippi State team is much improved from last year. Allie, what are your top 5 coaching wish lists? Whew. I want Lane to come to Gainesville. I think Lane is just a great fit. I love the concept of Marcus Freeman. I think you make Dan Lanning tell you no. I like Signetti. I have questions about how long he might be willing to coach because he is a little bit on the older end. I've heard Brent Key thrown around. I don't know that I think that that hire would go over as well with the Florida fan base as some of the other ones. That doesn't mean he wouldn't be good, but I do think winning the crowd and retaining the locker room are two huge things that have to happen. And if it's not a massive splash hire, I think that becomes a lot harder to do. Let's see. Yes. Let's see. This might be the last time Liquid Flames you get to see the wrong number of men on the field. That would be it might be. That's true. You guys all had lots and lots of comments, and Florida boy Lane Kiffin. That's the list. Hey, I think you make him tell you no for sure. I do think that he. I think there's a great chance he would come to Gainesville. And Billy B, I agree. No more G5 coaches. This is not an on-the-job training spot. We need to stop treating it like it is. We need to hire a name that can come in and win immediately. I said it earlier in the show. I'm going to probably be beating this drum for the next several weeks. This could be a Ron Zook, Urban Meyer situation if we hire the right replacement. I do think that Coach Napier has done a very good job building talent in Gainesville. I think that that locker room is very good. If you can, one, retain them, two, develop them, put them in situations to be successful, I think Florida has the ability to make the playoffs next year. So the right coach is really critical because they have the ability to just strike while the iron is hot with this locker room as long as they can retain it. All right. 5 things I need to see from the Gators. 4 quarters of football. I have said it on this show several times. I'm over the strong starts and the fades into the second half. Florida needs a complete game. They need energy. They need execution. They need emotion from whistle to whistle. Offensive line consistency. Florida's offensive line was horrific against Texas A&M. Lagway's development depends on cleaner pockets and a consistent push in the run game. Defensive focus and tackling. Missed tackles have extended too many opponents' drives. Wrap up, swarm to the ball. It was somewhat embarrassing how poor Florida tackled last week. Red zone creativity. Napier must scheme ways to finish possessions. Play action, tight end looks, misdirection, instead of just settling for field goals. We've been playing too conservative for the last, 3.5 seasons. And I need to see visible leadership. Captains and veterans have to set the tone, whether they're a sideline spark or a big defensive stand. This team needs someone, honestly, anybody at this point, to take control. All right. So what is my prediction on this one? Florida's offensive rhythm and home field advantage should be enough to bounce back against a Bulldog squad that is still searching for that SEC win. I expect Lagway to post his cleanest stat line of the year. And the Gator defense is going to force multiple turnovers. And I think that they're going to cruise to a comfortable and much needed win, which is going to make Sunday all the more interesting if the rumors are to be believed that Napier is going to be fired. But I do believe that Florida wins 34-13. I appreciate you guys for joining me. I'll have a lot more content coming out this week, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I think it's going to be a wild week. See you guys real soon.